What's up, guys? So, I want to do a quick little education here about something that most people don't understand about their utility bill and why it's so high. And this is something that I don't want you to take my word for it. We're going to use actual monitoring inside of homes. As we can see, I'm going to be inside my sister's home and a few customers, and I can see real time how much each device in her house is using when it comes to consumption and how that translates to dollar amounts. And there's always a an idea of where you're spending money with energy, but most people are completely surprised at the actual balance of where that consumption is happening and where one culprit is actually the main thing that you're paying for. Okay. So I'm going to click into here on my sister's and we're going to click AC. In the top right, you can see she's using around 3,000 watts to keep her house around 72 degrees, probably. She'll bring it up to 75. And she's in a house that's about half the size of my house. And I want you to just look how long it's been running. Okay, so I mean, for hours, it has not even turned off. Okay, and when it kicked on with a hard start, so you could see it shoot up a little bit higher, and then it goes down right there. And it was only off from 12:58. So it was off about 3 minutes and then back on again. All right. So almost all day it has been running, and because it will be getting hotter, this is 3 o'clock, it's gonna stay on like this. You can go to minutes and you can kind of see it having very little breaks in there. Okay. So we go back to home and I can see that 54% of her utility usage per minute right now is attributed to the AC. If I go by hour, it's about 48%. And I can go to day and we see it's about 60% of her usage is coming from her AC. She's used 23 kilowatt hours and 14 of that was her air conditioning. Let's go to other people's. Same story over here. If I click into this, we go to per second. He's using even more, 4,100 watts to run his AC, and it also is not turning off. All right, so let's go to minutes. He's getting a little bit better of a break. In fact, I know he has a little bit more of efficient of an AC, but he has a house about the same size as mine. So he's getting longer breaks in between. But these are, earlier in the morning. And as we get towards the warmer period, you see it's not actually turning off. And it will continue this through 5 or 6 o'clock. Now, what does this mean when we look at this in the form of currency? Okay. So let's go back to pretty much what we're walking into, which is going to be these summer months. And you'll see my sister at Megan Energy Monitoring. She had a $320 utility bill. 68% of that was her AC, which was $216 of the 320 was the AC. The rest of her house was using $10, $6. And then that balance of $75 is just the other circuits that I'm not monitoring in the house, all added together. We go to the next person. $411 utility bill. 67% of that's the AC, $276. Look how easy it would have been to run the rest of the house. $18 for the dryer, $3 for the oven, $3 for the rooms and the plugs, $2 one. That old idea of turn off the lights that people say that they used to hear from their parents whenever people used a different technology in their light bulbs. They weren't using the LEDs. That was true back then. That is not true no more. You could leave all of your lights on when they're LEDs, not going to cause any utility issues, okay? Everything is going to be the air conditioning, or it's going to be like a dryer using inefficiently. If you're just throwing loads in there all the time and you're not doing them in groups, you'll see that's one of the other second highest usages. It's the third for my sister. Most people, it's right up there in there. You'll get some other higher usages if people are using like heaters or something like that plugged in a room, or some things like that. But for the most part, I don't care where you go. He wasn't logged in yet. So let's go to the next. All right, so now you're in September, 62%, so $241 utility bill, $150 was the AC. Same thing down here, $320 utility bill, 57%, 183. Now I want you to compare that to what I'm doing. So I have a DC to DC solar mini split. So you can see currently my home is 71 degrees. I just switched it on before this to 69 degrees. So to pull that off, it's top left corner using 1,139 watts directly from my solar into a DC motor. So it's not having to convert it to AC then back to DC, which is very inefficient. It's just staying in DC form, allowing the power there to be way more efficient. I'm only using 8 solar panels and it's cloudy outside. All right. I'm using 40 watts from the grid. So when you compare that to someone who's similarly sized to my house, okay, he's using 4,000 watts to cool his house to the 70s. I'm at 71 degrees. I'm using 94 watts. Okay. And when I say 94 watts, that is an AC coupled load limiting option, right? So when I come down here, you see the AC limiter at the bottom. I can cool with this 2-ton unit. I can heat with it. I can change the speed in which I want the fan to blow. Right now it's on auto. It's super quiet. If I want to cool it down faster, I could switch it to turbo. But that AC limiter means the AC input, meaning alternating current, can only go up to 600 watts, which means I can never spend this kind of money on heating and cooling. I can only spend 600 watts at a time, right? And the rest is going to come from the PV input. Now, what about night, you say, right? Well, again, it can only use 600 watts if I have that load limiter activated. If I want more, I can turn that off and it will use as much as any other 2-ton unit would need to when in DC to DC form. So still only going to use about 1,600 watts, 1,700 watts, something like that, but be producing like it's using 2,000 watts, 2,500 watts, because it's simply more efficient. And I can cool my entire house, 2 stories, 3,000 square foot, with the upstairs being about a 4-degree difference typically. And so it really depends on if I'm circulating air up there or something like that. So if we go up to the temperature, yep, you'll see it is currently at 74 degrees upstairs in the main giant room because it has nothing else producing air there, simply what's going on downstairs, which I don't have currently on turbo, so it's not getting as much power as normally. But what I do is turn on the HVAC's fan, and it helps circulate that cool air that I'm producing, and it gets it upstairs. Again, about a 4-degree difference, unless I turn it on turbo and just turn on the fan upstairs, and then it'll get about a 2-degree difference typically. Now, just to understand where my home is as far as cooling, my 3-year-old home had its HVAC system go out 2 years in a row. They put it on the south side, so the condenser coils were getting 135 degree surface temperature. I consistently monitor these kinds of things, and it was having to fight that. And it was when the heat dome was here, so it was 100 something degrees outside, and you're only supposed to have your home 20 degrees below what it's outside with your HVAC system. So that would mean I'd have to put it on 80 degrees, which is not happening. So it ended up breaking, so I paid for that. But I had to solve it. So what I did was the amount of money to fix it would require me waiting 2 weeks and then spending $1,800. Or I could have spent $1,800 on this mini split right here and hook it up to 6 to 8 solar panels and have free heating and cooling, practically, right? That's what I did. And I will never, ever not do this again. So just to kind of show you, You can get these mini splits that have these cassettes that act like regular vents. You can tie into your existing ducting, but what I did is this: I just put that head right there above the kitchen. It matches kind of the other wall fixtures that are white, and I have a 1,500 square foot open space area down here, and so it can blow in up, down, left, right. I can have it blowing up towards the air where the return is, so it doesn't actually hit you in the face anywhere. Or I can have it rotating left and right and up and down horizontally, and it can cool or heat the entire area down here. I mean, most of the time the kids will be saying they're freezing if I turn it on all the way, even when it's blistering hot outside. And so that's what I chose, but you don't have to do that. You can tie directly into your ductwork, or you can put two of these smaller units. So you have one 2-ton unit, and you put two 1-ton heads in different areas, like in a bedroom and then downstairs or whatever you want. You can put the individual cassettes so that each one of them exists in each room, right? So you can put those in each room that you want, just like a regular vent if you don't want to do that, or if you're building from scratch. Now, one of the reasons these work so well is, as you see here, it always runs at full speed. Okay, it's always running, and there's not a lot of variable speeds in there. So it would be like if you were driving around, and when you were driving, you always smashed your foot to the floor. You just always were going full bore, no matter what, as fast as you can, even if you're backing out of the driveway to go get your mail. What a mini split does is a variable speed technology that it only uses what is necessary. Okay, so I actually have mini splits. These are window mini splits that look like this, that I still keep in my bedroom. And they're not the kind that pull out to the side that, can look a little dirty sometimes or let a lot of heat in. This actually is U-shaped. So right here, the window slides in between there, and you only have to do a little itty bitty foam gap at the very bottom, and you can still open and close your window with this. So I keep those in the bedroom and guest room so that there's temperature control in the guest rooms like that. And these are basically 1-ton mini splits. So to show you what I mean by that, I've turned it on, and when I used a regular window unit or any other portable air conditioning where it doesn't have that variable speed, it uses 1,500 watts. All of them seem to use about 1,500 watts. So if you had two of those, maybe one in each room, for example, one in each bedroom, right? Maybe you're thinking you're saving money to do that. You're not. Because in the same way this is about 4,000 watts, two of those are going to be 3,000 watts, right? So if that's the case, you've already now hit pretty much the same amount, but you only covered 2 rooms, and it will not be enough to cool your house down. And this is where most people think about this math and that it doesn't work, is they've tried something like that, have high utility bills, doesn't cool the house. Yes, HVACs are way better in that instance. That's not what I'm talking about here. This is completely different, and I'll show you. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see it says 687 watts for just that Midea window unit right there. So instead of 1,500 watts, it'll use around 900 watts, maybe 1,100 if it's like really fighting it, until it hits a target temperature. Once it does that, it cycles down, as you're seeing real time in the bottom right-hand corner, and it's only using 477 watts in order to cool that space to whatever target temperature. So, let's see. I have those in 3 of the bedrooms. On the second floor, it's 66 degrees in there right now. All right, so this is the second floor in that guest room, 66 degrees in there, and the downstairs Zen room is turned off. Master bedroom, I put it on 60. It's 66 degrees in my bedroom. And I'm doing that intentionally to make a point that even if I'm making my house go into these insane temperatures, like it's hot outside and that's why everyone's AC is running constantly for 4,000 watts, I don't need it this cold. But even if I wanted it, I wanted to show that I can get it this cold. I can get it into the low 60s, and look how much energy I'm using. my master bedroom, which is where it is 66 degrees on the bottom, it's using 730 watts. Okay, 797 now. 838. It's doing some variable speeds, right? It is using that to cool it to the temperature that I want while also running the other things in my home. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, it's only using 464 watts. And then the living room, laundry, guest room above that, it's not turned on in that room, so it's at only 71 watts. And the point of that is, if you add 850, what was it? 6 plus 419. All right, that's 1200 watts for those two rooms. And then you have to subtract out the 300 from the TV, sorry. So both of these, the Medea bottom right and the master bedroom have the same unit. So there's 300 watts that's from the TV that comes on there. They're both using about 400 watts. So I'm at 970 watts for those two rooms to be in a ridiculous temperature. And then I'm using 1200. All right. And then 40. All right. So I am using half of the power to cool my entire 3,000 square foot home compared to what he's using. And I doubt, because I know him, I doubt he is in 60-degree temperatures in his two-story 3,000 square foot home. He's probably paying 40. Now it's going up on him. He's using 4,100 watts to probably be in the 70s, like 72, 73, something like that. And of this 2,215, all right, 1,800 it was, so it's 1,500 now. I got to subtract 1,500 because that's coming from solar. So only 715 watts compared to 4,100 watts is actually hitting the grid. And when it's hitting the grid, I actually have batteries on there, so solar and batteries. So the ones that are green right now, I'm not paying for that. That's actually just lowering, it's either using solar or it's using the battery. One of those two things are happening. So if I come over here, I have 0.33 kilowatts coming from the grid, which is the garage plugs. I could actually just come over here and turn that to battery if I want to. And you'll see that now, left-hand side, nothing is coming from the grid. Everything is coming from solar. All of them are green. My house is using 2.5 kilowatts, or 2,590 watts at the moment is how much it's running. 2,570 watts, or 2.55 kilowatts, because there's 1,000 watts in each kilowatt. Now, that's a little different than kilowatt hour. A kilowatt hour means if I'm pouring a cup of power at a rate of 2.6 kilowatt hours, of 2.6 kilowatts, right? In an hour, how many of those would I've produced? Would it be 2? Would it be 5? Who knows? Because it's variable, right? Sometimes I'm pouring a little faster. Sometimes I'm pouring 5 kilowatts in there. Sometimes I'm putting 2 in there. Sometimes I'm down to 1. And so after an hour, it will calculate how many kilowatts or kilowatt hours was being used. And it's a little different because it doesn't really mean that it has to take an hour for the 2.52 kilowatts to have done something. If you're having variable speeds in there, you could have 5 kilowatt hours that was used in 1 hour simply because there was more kilowatts being poured at that time. And I know it's a little confusing, but you can look at it right here in the middle, okay? 43 kilowatt hours have been used today so far, all from the batteries in the grid. So there's 43 kilowatt hours that have been used today, with me pouring power into that center circle at a rate of 2.57 kilowatts. Okay, and that variable speed means that parts of the day I was pouring more in there. I was pouring like 5 kilowatt hours, or 5 kilowatts, 6 kilowatts. All right. So the volume of power at any one moment is broken up right here per watt. So the kitchen is using 156 watts. If it was using 1,000 watts, it would be 1 kilowatt. Because it's using 160 watts, it's going to be a decimal point, right? You go to the master bedroom, 7.79 watts. You have, 779 watts. Game room, 305 watts. Kids room, 334 watts. Furnace, 227, right? This gives you an idea of how much energy these rooms are using, which is not much compared to 4,100 watts just from your AC. Look at the difference between how much that uses compared to all of my other rooms. It is using twice the amount of energy that my entire house is, including 2 window units. Does that start to make sense to you right there? It is an inefficient addition to your home. And I had a buddy who I just added him. He works for an HVAC company. I think he retired now. And I'm trying to show him how inefficient his usage is. If he clicks in there, he also is using 4,000 watts. He's in 4,200. His also is not turning off very often. Look at that. Hardly turning off. Okay? It is 78% of his utility bill right now. Imagine if he was cooling his house with this and only 40 watts, top right hand corner, 40 watts was the only thing that was being demanded of his solar system, battery, or if he just was paying for it, right? Let's say you didn't have anything else. You just had a very small solar system, just 8 solar panels, and the rest was pulling from the grid. That means I would only be paying for 40 watts. 40 watts, that's not even a light bulb. Okay. 1,200 watts cooling my house with the solar panels to 69 degrees, which means I would be knocking out 78% of my utility bill just by doing that. That is huge, and I don't think people understand that, because when you look at this, the amount of money that you're spending on this, right? So let's go look at this real quick. All right, so this is a customer who he initially just did solar. I told him to do the mini split, told him to do the batteries. He eventually listened to me and did the batteries later. Now we can see he's crushing it. So when you look at this graph, the top part of it, let's start with the bottom. The bottom part in orange is how much he's pulling from the grid. The gray shadows above it is represented as an import. So it's going to mirror what the bottom is doing. So the bottom is pulling energy, and that's showed as a mirrored amount in the gray of how much he's importing from the grid. The blue represents how much solar was produced. So you'll notice there is no gray above the middle line because he's not importing anything. Solar was enough to run his house. You can see it's bigger than the orange at the bottom. And you'll see that there's green there, and that's because there wasn't enough solar by itself in the morning, so he had to pull from his battery. So the battery in green is how much the battery was discharging so that he didn't go to the grid. But at some point during the day, there was enough solar to not only start charging the battery, but also to run his home. And then it was more than he needed, so the gray bar graphs go in the opposite direction. He's producing more power than he needs, so he's selling back power. And if you look in the top left and right, 13.8 kilowatt hours is what he imported at night, and he sold back 13.3 during the daytime, right? And that's, the day's not over, so he's going to be selling some more before we get here. So he's producing enough energy to run his house and sell back enough energy to cover what he used at night, okay? Now, he used a pretty big battery system to do this. When you see those spikes right here, Okay, do you see how there's spike, spike, spike? Does that look familiar to you at all? Do you see how your AC moves? So these spikes that you're seeing is your AC almost entirely. Okay. So when you have that happening during the daytime, it kind of rolls over there, which I'll show you right here. All right. This is a solar customer on a very cloudy day, so he's not producing a ton of solar yet, but he's producing more than the baseline over here, right? So this middle line right here in the middle, get rid of the spikes. When solar kicked on, it's producing more than his house needs, other than these air conditioning spikes. Okay? So he has options. He could either have enough battery to do similar what you just saw previously, or for like 1/10 of the cost or a quarter of the cost, he could have simply had 8 solar panels allocated to the thing that is drawing the most power, which is the AC, and allocated that to a heat pump that the government, those cost $1,800, right? The government gives you $2,000, so that's practically for free. You just pay for the labor. That could have gone to that, and it could have heated and cooled his home. And then what would have happened was, because all those spikes disappeared, and even some of those little humps, because those disappeared, he would be overproducing and selling back energy. And he would have spent $1,800 instead of spending quite a bit of money on the lithium, right? So I have been trying to show people this because I know it's complicated to understand all the variables and the math. And if you look at it, once you understand the math, it becomes very obvious to you. And I'll kind of show you right here what I'm showing him. That when you turn off the production, turn off the exported, you can see just the consumption, right? So now you can understand the bottom is drawing power from the grid. When we turn the produced on and the consumption off, you see how much is solar producing. All right, now we turn off the production and we turn the imported and exported on. Now we can see how much did he actually pay for. What is his utility bill going to reflect? Well, it's only going to reflect whatever is going up and above that line. There is no solar in that part of the day, so that's your nighttime usage. The amount sold to the grid is the bottom. So this is different than the battery person. So because he has a very high consumption with his air conditioning and it was cloudy this particular day, the solar didn't cover, all of his usage there, obviously. It just minimized it for a portion of the day. All right, so then if you turn production back on and consumption, now you can see the full picture. Okay, you compare that again to what we're looking at here at this customer. All right, he's importing and exporting. Look at this day. Importing during the morning hours, 3 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. As soon as the sun starts coming up, right around 6:20, something like that, the battery comes and fills in the gap, right? So anytime the battery was not enough, the battery came in there and it would kind of fill in that gap starting right over here. And that's where you see those green bars at the top. And then what you'll see is as the solar starts going up, the consumption down there, it was needing to fill in some voids there just to cover the additional demand he had because the AC was probably kicking on. But at some point it got into the area where it was charging the batteries, topped the batteries off, and then it switched over to going and actually just selling back the rest of the excess energy. The batteries were completely topped off. The rest of it, it was going to be sold back with the bar graph. And then every now and then it would top the battery off with those little green tips right here. Those little green tips means it sold back as much power, but then it saw a dip in the battery, so it topped it back off. Then it went back to selling more energy back to the grid. And it got to the point that it never imported the entire time that the solar was on. All it did was export over there until nighttime started over here. So this is where you do a good strategy, potentially like doing free nights. If you can always cover what you need during the daytime, then maybe you don't need to sell back excess energy. Maybe you just want your nighttime covered because that is the whole point of selling excess energy. Isn't it better to just guarantee that your nighttime's covered no matter what? That it doesn't matter what you did during the daytime to produce? To me, I think so. Especially if you can get something like air conditioning under control by using free energy that way. Now, they will charge you more if you use energy during the daytime. They'll charge you quite a bit more, like 25 cents. So you want to make sure you have either a battery backup system into place, but you can do a smaller one. You want to make sure you're covered during these parts of the day, right? When there is not that much sun yet, but you might have some demand. And you'll need it over here as well. So you see how much it filled up there. But that amount is going to be a smaller battery system than if you were trying to cover the entire night or had to pay for the night. That start to make sense there? All right. Just to give you an idea, here's how much utility rates cost. Now, both of those people that I showed you, solar produces a certain amount of power. No matter what happens, they have locked in the cost of what they spend for power on that power production. The only thing they haven't locked in is any imported power that they need to still purchase, right? That's why I like the free nights, because it's free. I don't have to negotiate with that. I only negotiate the daytime, so I make sure that's covered. Let's look at how much energy rates have gone up. August 2002, all right, 8.9 cents per kilowatt hour. By June of 2021, 12 cents per kilowatt hour, all right? So the jump from 2002 to 2021 has a decent amount of time, all right? And it was just slowly going up. Already from June 2021 to 2023, immediately jumped up from 12 cents to 16 cents. All right, that's a 7.8% increase from 2022 to 2021. That is an 87% increase overall, right? So that's ginormous. That trend is not stopping, all right? That trend is going to continue. You can see a lot of people telling you that Houston is even pretty late this year getting to the heat party. The temps are going to soar this week, and it is. When people say, oh, they're just saying that, no. I can see demonstrably that these, actually, let's look at it this way. Let's go to, I can go by the week. I can see the increase. It's not a joke. It's not lying. It's not fear tactic. You can see demonstrably that it is coming up in the demand. It's using more energy. All right. Is that just his home? No. Everyone is going up. Okay? You can't fake current transformers wrapped around your load and monitoring it real time. All right? I can see how long it's running now. I can see the mini breaks. All right? And the issue that's going on is that they have told us themselves what they're going to do, right? Utilities increased their fees for delivering electricity to customers in 2021, upping about a penny to 4.6 per kilowatt hour. That's the second highest rate among transmission distribution utilities in Texas, right? Let's go to wholesale energy rate increase. All right. CenterPoint Energy seeks rate increase starting February 2024. That passed, all right? So this is when they were asking for it. CenterPoint Energy has filed with the Public Utility Commission of Texas on December 14th to increase customers' energy bills by February 2024, according to its proposal. The increased rate would help cover the cost of CenterPoint's energy investments to upgrade and build power lines that are necessary to maintain a safe and reliable distribution system, meaning it's not currently, but they need to charge more money to you so that they can fix it. So that got passed. All right, you can see they have the new rates coming. All right, so all this math is going to get worse for people, except for the people who have already locked in the cost of power, who are already generating power through a DC solar mini split. The hotter it gets, the more energy I have. All right, I'm going to have more sun exposure. I'm going to just simply have the AC running colder for free. Everyone else, not so much. When people look at the cost of solar, they almost always are looking at what the total cost of solar is and comparing that to their monthly cost. Okay? When we come back over here to currency, and we're going to look at these months, okay? When you're having $320 bills, when you're having $411 bills, when you're having, like me, I had a $346 average utility bill, okay? So over 12 months, that was $4,152. In 10 years, that's $41,000. Okay, for 10 years worth of power, if the rate never went up, that's a $41,000 payment I got to make. If the rate goes up at the rate that it's typically going, which we just saw is happening, they already said they're going to do it. In fact, I can show you Senate bills that passed that said they're going to do it for the next 20 years. Just double it. That's going to be $83,000 over a 10-year period. How much does your solar system cost when they quoted you? All right. Take the same $4,100. What would it be the life of the mortgage? $123,000 operating costs to live in this home if the rate never went up at all for 30 years, for the life of the mortgage. The operating cost for my home would be that much. I spent $35,000, okay, on my solar system. And then I got a, let's see, $16,000 incentive. Let's see where it is. You can see I'm a big believer of case studies and demonstrable evidence. Okay, here's from my tax person. Your solar credit was $16,193. There's a limitation of what you can use based on your tax liability. So instead of owing money like I usually do, we got $4,000 something back. That was utilizing $7,658. And then the next year, another $8,535 dollar for dollar tax credit, meaning I will not pay up to $8,535. Like if I had that money set to the side because I was going to owe in taxes, then I would wipe it out completely and just not pay taxes that year. If I paid money into this taxes, it would give me that back first, right? And then also wipe out any taxes I owed. So you can take that $16,193 and subtract that from the $35,000 for my system. That means I spent $18,000, let's just call it flat. $18,000 is what I spent for a system to get rid of the utility bills for $100 something thousand system over the life of this mortgage. I did it for a 10-year on my actual plan, okay? So instead of spending $41,000, I spent $18,000, right, to lower the operating costs on this home. Now, here's the crazy thing. Okay? Reliant, so I use 26,000 kilowatt hours. When that used to be 12 cents, that was only 3,000 a year. So over a 10-year period, that's 31,000. So it increased $10,000 over the 10-year period, just from a few pennies changing when it was 12 cents. My 26,000 kilowatt hours a year times the 16 cents is where you got that 41. That's my 342. It is 17 cents currently that they're charging, and 18 cents is what they're offering. So you take the same 26,000 a year, multiply it by 18 cents. Now we're up to 46. So if you multiply that by the 10 years, now we're at 46,000 I would have spent. I don't have to worry about that anymore. The math is done for me. It was $35,000 with a $16,000 incentive. I spent $18,000 instead of $46,000 now. All right, you times that by 3 for the full 30. Now it's up from $120,000 operating costs. Now it's up to $140,000 operating costs to live here. Now imagine when I'm going to sell my home, I get to show a year worth of this terrible math and show that it functions like a variable rate, meaning I can't guarantee it's not locked in. Last year, the operating cost to live in here, if you added it to the mortgage, right? So imagine you had to add that $140,000 to the mortgage, all right, or to the total cost of the home. So instead of saying, all right, this home now has to add $120,000, and you're looking at the house shopping, well, boom, the rates go up. Now, never mind, it's going to be $140,000 extra dollars. It's $160,000 to live in this home. How could you possibly think that that's a good thing? That you don't even know what it's going to cost to live in your home over the 30-year period. That's the reason you buy the home. You bought the home because you didn't want to keep renegotiating the cost of living and pay someone else's mortgage leasing it. Why are you still doing that with power then? Why are you constantly renegotiating the cost of power when you can just own it with a fixed cost? You know your total cost. I know my 10-year cost. It was $35,000. I know how much I got back, so I know what my net cost is. It was $18,000. And then now I know how much I spend monthly. I know what my equity payment is, and I know what leftover utility bill would be there. And for me, there is one because we hooked up our hot tub that isn't currently hooked up to the solar system. So instead of a $342 bill, I pay like $30, $60, something like that. And that's just because we turn the hot tub on during the day with a free nights program, and they charge me 25 cents per kilowatt hour to do it. And I just don't care. I want to make sure that the hot tub's hot so I can go relax in it, right? If I didn't have that kicking on, I wouldn't even have a utility bill. It'd be very small. It'd be something like $15 or something. So for me, it is very obvious that that's the route to go. I don't even have to get to 10 years. If I get to 4 years, like let's say we start selling it right now, all that's going to happen is instead of charging what we were going to for the house, I'm going to add like $15,000 or $20,000, okay? And that will pay off any remaining loan amount and probably even have a little bit of a profit. All right, so there is no loan. They get to keep the solar system. I get to keep the lower utility bill and the critical backup that I had the entire time. All right, the new homeowners, they don't have a loan. They just have a mortgage that is slightly higher because we upped it, $15,000 to $20,000. They just have like a slightly higher mortgage. But what they know they're avoiding is this $140,000 over the next 30 years. They know they don't have by the way, when you have that 46 and you divide it by 12, the new average was going to be 383 instead of the 342. So maybe they're paying $120 more for their mortgage, but that's locked in and stored as equity. They would have been paying $383 with no equity conversion. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And if the power goes out, you lose power. So you're spending more money to be more at risk rather than having this 30-year warranted solar project. So you have 0 down, 0 deductible, all parts and labor covered, 30 years, completely covers the power production, no deductibles, gap insurance. So even if the panel manufacturer or the solar installer goes out of business, no matter what, you still have 30 years guaranteed power. Why would I do the alternative? Now, the only way that you would do the alternative is this. Okay? And here's the math to look at. If you do on my particular system, which by the way is overkill right now because I built my original system before solving the AC thing. I had two options. I could have done a 25 year and my monthly payment for solar would be 177. Okay? I told you I have like a little bit of a utility bill left over because of the hot tub. It could be as low as 15 bucks. All right? Or it can be as high if I'm like being a little sillier. Oops, excuse me. 177 plus. So it could be as high as 277. I could have $100 utility bill if I'm running the hot tub all the way during the day, or if you have the mini split and you're not doing the load limiter and it's pulling from the grid or something like that, and instead of the solar or something like that, there's ways that you could make that happen. Okay, but maximum you're at 277 compared to 380 something. So I'm cheaper no matter what. I'm cheaper than the alternative was no matter what, because it's always going to be 300 something, 342, 380, something like that. You could also do a shorter term. And if you do shorter terms, like a really short term, you could do like a 245 monthly payment that you're at 260, or you do the 245 plus the 100. Now you're spending what you were spending, but locked in. So it can't go up to that 385 that the other option went up to. Can't go up to the 400, the 412, whatever. And this one has critical backup. So if the power goes out for everyone else, I don't lose power. I can still cool my house. When everyone else has a heat dome and their power goes out and it's shut off, my lights don't even blink. My AC is humming. I'm freezing in here while everyone else is sweating and really hating that they kicked that solar guy off their property. All right, they're coming knocking on my door, asking to borrow power, asking to hang out in here because it's just like it is normal. So why would I spend the same amount of money with a rate that functions like a variable rate, doesn't give me critical backup, that is going to go up for sure, demonstrably? Why would I do that? Even on the 10-year with a higher monthly payment, it's at the same cost or cheaper. And, I only did the 10-year because at the time they didn't cover my system because it was new. I created a backyard fence-mounted solution, and so it wasn't covered. So I did a regular loan that only had 10-year options. If I could have, I would have done the 177 because I don't plan on being here 10 years or 25 years. I'm going to just increase the amount like I told you. So I could be going and paying that 177 no matter what. Sell the home. They get to keep the new system, and they get to demonstrably go back and look at the utility usage over time. And with my house, it's cool because I have the entire first year when I didn't have solar. My roof was not a good match for it, faced the wrong direction, so I had to come up with a solution. I was going to do a pergola, but wood shot up 300%, so I ended up doing a backyard fence-mounted solution, which is what you see over here. We do these fence-mounted solutions. That's a customer of mine. It's low impact, no holes in the roof, right? And then we get it facing the right direction through that. These are the amount of installs that we've done. And you can see here's my home. So that's mine in the backyard. I actually have misting systems that are cleaning them and also cooling them down, because the hotter they get, there is a temperature coefficient. And I can actually get more production out of the solar panels by just making sure that when I'm cleaning them, I'm doing it during the part of the day where I want to cool them down too. Also, it's watering my lawn, and because it's blowing that mist, any wind that blows through there, it's a cooler air in the backyard when I'm back there. But when the solar panels were 130 degree surface temperature, I was getting 336 watts per panel. and so a total of 8.4 kW. And 45 seconds cooling the solar panels down to about 90 degrees. It was like 88 degrees technically. I got 384 watts per panel, which if you're looking at it per panel doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add those up, that's getting 9.6 kW. I increased the production 1200 watts or 1.2 kW. Okay, when you go back over here, look how much how much that is. That's half of what my house is using. That's all of the window units. Right? Even one of the inefficient ones, it's almost that entire amount. So just by cooling it for a few seconds, I was able to get as much power out of it from cooling it that I could run half the house with that additional power. Think about that. Okay. You got to make sure though that you use water softened water. You don't want calcium buildup. All right. Another customer, we put white rocks under these because the light will reflect off the bottom of that and then it will hit the back of the panels because these are bifacial, meaning you collect energy on the front side and then any ambient light or reflective light that's hitting the back also is producing power. Usually I get about 30% more power and you don't pay anything extra when you go through us for bifacials because the bifacials we sell at the same price as regular solar panels. So you just get extra free energy bouncing off the back. All right. And you'll kind of see how my utility bills work. Instead of that, like I would typically have like here was my old math, okay? I would spend $12.42 during the daytime. So $12.42 a day. So if you times that by 30 days, that would have been a $372 bill that I was trending towards. Now, 42 cents I spent on that day. All right, you can see I have free nights. So as soon as the 8 o'clock a night starts, that 4.9 kW is me actually charging my battery back up. I use the battery right there. Okay, so I was using it from when the sun went down to run the house. And then I charged it. And then after that, it goes back down to regular low normal consumptions using 2,000 kilowatts, right? Pretty much what you see happening right here, top left. That's what it is while I'm sleeping. But I'm getting that for free because I'm on free nights. Soon as it's 6 a.m., I have batteries and solar panels covering it, so they can't charge me anything. It's completely free during that period. There was a little bump right here that something happened that I was probably hot tub. That's what it was. Hot tub started kicking in right there. 42 cents is what I spent for it. Here they had to give me a credit. All right, so those are 24 cent days. So 24 cents, 24 cents, 42 cents, 42 cents instead of my $12 days. So when people have these experiences with solar, if you put panels, like I told you, my roof was not good for solar panels. If I didn't have solar panels producing power, then I would have a utility bill and a monthly payment. You can't have that. You have to use LiDAR. Okay. This tells me in bright yellow where he's getting sun. So the first time I did solar, I put it only where the bright yellow areas are. Anywhere that's dark purple, anywhere that's happening, they're not getting that much sunlight. So if I put solar panels over there, then they would pay for that panel, but it wouldn't be producing much power. So you're wasting money. Unethical solar panel salesmen would say they don't care, and they would just put the panels everywhere to try to make as much money as possible. So there is ways for solar to go bad if you don't understand it. That's why I'm taking the time to educate you right now. If you understand it, though, and you only put panels where it's bright yellow, and you can potentially put them where they're orange, this customer right here is the customer that was right here. So when we put him in the initial spots, I told him, you either need to get some batteries or you need to do the solar mini split. like most people, they like to dip their toes in, and they understandably don't necessarily trust that a solar salesman has um, their best. Um, having one of those brain farts right now. Doesn't have their best in. They don't have the best intentions, right, for that person. I don't know why I can't think right now. So they have their walls up, and that's fine. What's unfortunate is when you are talking to a solar salesman who does understand the math, who can demonstrably show it with evidence by logging into and showing existing examples, and he cares about you having the lowest utility bill because he wants to show that off as another example of why he was actually showing people the right thing. Another example of how you can trust this industry when you work with the right people, which is usually going to be direct installers like us, rather than going through brokers, which is 90% of the industry. When you have someone who cares about a customer's success, and you could even say it selfishly, I selfishly care that they have success with their utility rates because I want to make money in volume. That's the only way you can get a win-win. I don't make as much money per person, but because I focus on getting the utility bill to be the right amount of savings, they are happy and they spread the word and tell other people about me. I have evidence that I can show people and recommendations, so it's easier to close that next person. Right? And then ethically, I'm doing the right thing, of course. And so that's the way that it happens, but it only works if people are educated. And right now, unfortunately, they can just charge you whatever they want, and most people don't even understand how power works. They don't even understand how to look at their utility rates. And so I've heard stories in the past before smart meters where people who are traveling in RVs, right? So they're here at home in August, they leave, go on vacation, and while they're gone, they would get a utility bill that was $300, similar to the previous year. When they call in and ask what happened, and they said, "Hey, we weren't even here," they go, "Oh, we're sorry. We just did an estimate. We'll sure it up and give you credit next month." And he was like, "What? No, you can't just arbitrarily be charging me whatever you want, and doesn't matter if I was trying to be conscientious and do savings." No, they were just charging you what they think you were going to be doing and just billing it. So now that you have the monitoring, you can see real time. I can go in here and see, does this match up exactly with what they told me I used during that month? And you can export this and kind of get it in a spreadsheet and play with the math in a lot of interesting ways. But that is my point, is that when that's happening, they can kind of charge you whatever you want. You don't even understand how it's happening. It's very hard for you to actually make an impact. People are still walking around telling people to turn off the lights, thinking they're saving money. And then they're drying their clothes, individual loads all the time, and then cranking their AC down into the 60s, fighting this crazy heat dome. So the best thing that I can do is educate people. And it's difficult, and there's a lot, and that's why I like these props and examples. But the more you educate yourself and the more you buy tools like this where you can monitor real time and see how much energy you're using per second as it's happening, right? When you can get in there and you can start seeing, what's going on as we speak, you can see okay, we're spending 47 cents right now. Now we're spending 15 cents. You'll get used to seeing these patterns happening, right? And you'll see what those translate into a day or to a week or to a month, right? So she's at $38 so far, 8 days into this. All right. So, and her trend, let's go. So she's at $5 a day, let's call it. So she's at $150 currently that she's trending towards, not including the delivery fees. So 5 times 30 would be 150. So she'll probably be at like a $200, maybe $220 utility bill trending so far. But I have a feeling this is also going to go up. I think she's going to have more of these $6.5 days as the heating starts to increase. With 6.55 times 30. Yeah, so now she's at one night. She'll be in like the 250s, 260s, 270s pretty easily so far with this trend, and we're not even in summer yet. Right? But she will get these little notifications now that tells her when she's using the most amount of energy that she's used that month. And she can probably go in there and go, am I being inefficient somewhere? Can I go turn that off? Or should I finally listen to my brother and actually go get that mini split that I told her to go get? So that's why I'm tracking her. She just moved in her home. I was telling her about the mini splits. She wasn't really sold on it yet because she hasn't really looked at the math. She's been looking at it. She's now told me to quote her on the price. So she's starting to get an idea of how this works and where the impact is. And so if anyone has any questions or you ever want me to do a Zoom with you where I can walk through your utility usage and do a plan for you, I'll do a free consultation. And once I break down how your house is using power and what solutions are available, I do offer solutions, right? So it's free to talk to me. If you decide to do one of the solutions, if you feel comfortable with me, that's when I'll make my money. But only if you decide to move forward with me. I don't charge anything for us to sit down and do an hour or two breakdown on how your home is using energy and what your solutions could be, why, and we can go through case studies or log in live to real power consumption and power production in my home and customers' homes that allow me to use them as examples where you don't have to just wonder how this works. We can go look into a home on any day. We can go to cloudy days, rainy days, winter days, yearly. We can look at the math from any angle that you want until you understand it so that you are comfortable with your purchase. And then we figure out, what your solution would be and what the cost would be and where the savings would be. And so if you're interested in that, I'll have my contact information in the description. You can email me or you can give me a call. And I'd love to set some time aside with you to go over your system. All right. Thank you. Bye.